Hey, Troy.
What's up, Ian?
We actually have something really cool today.
Oh,
Uh,
no, actually,
actually, I mean, like everything that we do is cool, but this is something I'm a
this is
little bit
actually cool.
actually cool. Yeah, yeah, and something I'm a little nerdily excited about because what we actually have today,
Guys, warning, Ian is excited to talk about psychology.
I
This
I
is
am,
a
and
rarity. I
thank you.
cannot make a more sarcastic voice than this.
And thank you for breaking up me saying actually like 84 times. Now it's just in my head now. I just have to get that out in case you hadn't noticed. But why am I excited? Because we have a follow-up question today that is pretty cool, and I think it's actually pretty relatable. So do you want to know what it is?
Yes, I do.
Okay, excellent. So, question is, hey guys, I've just started a small cleaning business, and after listening to your episode on mission and vision statements, I'm wondering if I should prioritize having them as I launch this business. I ask this because at most places that I've worked before, these statements have never really been taken seriously, and I was never taught their value. I'm not even sure that they have value. I'm stuck on knowing if they actually matter.
That's uh that's a fantastic question, and I completely understand why you think that. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So does any framework or does
Yeah.
anything kind of come to mind that we want to pick into this? Because I like how
Yeah.
straightforward it is.
Yeah. So, um, I don't know if you're going to reveal that there's a hidden part of this question that you haven't said in the future, but to reiterate, this person is simply stuck. Should they have value statements and mission statements and vision statements at the start, right?
Right at the start of this
So
new business that they're doing, right? And
yeah,
let's be clear, like ostensibly, like they've got all this other stuff to be worrying about right now too, right?
yeah,
Like, so
yeah.
do these
So
matter?
yeah, so let's just talk about values.
Okay,
Um,
I think that's a good
uh,
idea.
so because this I think is the most useful thing probably to them. And it's the idea that there are three different types of values a company can have.
Hmm.
And of course, this is a simplification, but it is moral values, working values, and product values.
Okay.
And moral values are the things like we should be sustainable, we should be ethical, we should always be honest, inclusion. They are things that the company believes that they should do, even if potentially it isn't good for the profit of the company sometimes.
Right.
So, right? And I don't think that that's um, what we want to talk about here.
No, I don't
Um,
think so. Although I will
we
briefly
should
say,
talk about it sometimes,
yeah.
but we shouldn't like relegate it. We shouldn't be like, yeah, all we need is 5 minutes on morals. That's enough.
No,
Um,
I mean, that's more than a lot of companies spend on it. Let's be clear about that.
that's
Like,
true. Yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
Um, so, so we're going to choose not to do that one
Hmm.
because I think probably what she really means are working values.
Hmm.
Because product values are we create products, and this is our sort of understanding of what it is. High quality, efficient, timely. There's almost no way that her company doesn't have one of those sort of commitments to one of those types of values. And if you don't, then you really need to go to a marketing 101 course. So let's talk about the hard thing to think about, which is these working values. So this is
Yeah.
how do we as a company work? So how do we think about teamwork? How do we think about risk? How do we think about creativity? How do we think about communication? These are the type of values that I think we really want to focus on and have a discussion. And sort of my general sort of reply to that is yes, you should definitely have values. And the fact that companies that you've seen before have not used their values correctly does not mean that values do not have value. Wow, that is
I like that
so.
tautology, but it really is, it really does kind of speak to like values actually have value, but you have to value them. Is that what you're saying, Troy?
Yeah. Yeah. So let's let's make that the title of the episode. Values have values, but you have to value
Value
them,
them. Right.
right? And so the general idea of what we're saying here is that if you have a value, you need to understand how that value turns to action, right? So a phrase used by my company and some other ones is this idea of how do we turn values into actions. And you're always going to be taking actions as a company, and you're going to every single time how you walk in a door, where you put your bag when you sit down, you're always making choices. So how are you following the values of the place? So we get really abstract, and I've already forgot what person, what company is it? I really didn't read the question today. What is the person's company again?
Cleaning. So they're a cleaning company, and they focus more on like kind of repeat business and like commercial clients than like being like one of those services that you get the app for and you just like get cleaning like whenever you need it, like whenever, right? So she's relying on consistent clients, like on kind of like longer term contracts, and like bigger clients where like her company is the one that comes in after the school shut down and they're doing all the cleaning for like the floors and all that stuff, like while nobody's there, that sort of thing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So she has quite a few employees.
Actually, it's interesting. It's only a couple because it's a more rural place, right? It's one of these things where it turns out not everywhere is Los Angeles County.
What?
I know, it's insane, right? It's amazing when you don't have the foot traffic that like an LA County, say, grocery store has. You can get a lot more done with fewer people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so right, so I think that what is occurring in this, I mean, one of the reasons that she might think they don't need these values is at this moment is it's just sort of intuitively clear to everybody in the company how to work together, right?
Correct.
Maybe they're friends or they're very similar personalities. So I mean, I'll just say it. Yeah, this is potentially less important in this situation than it would be in other situations.
Right.
I still think it's important, just the way that like two people who are in love in a long-term relationship need to understand what they value from that relationship and how their values about communication, their values about invading each other's personal space and all those things. So those are the kind of conversations that you want to have and is going on, right? So like one question that you would ask yourselves is, what do you believe about work-life balance? And what does everybody else believe in this situation, right? And so your value statement could be a wonderful place to work, or your value statement could be always get the gig.
Right.
Right? And those are two can be diametrically opposed ways of working. And you really need to be clear inside even a group of small people what that really means, right?
Yep. Well, and this is the thing that I'm going to say, right, is that I've seen this happen with a lot of especially small businesses, right? I think what you said about having those assumptions is it's really important. Like if you don't have some sort of a set of values that are guiding you, you need to at least question and make very obvious the assumptions that are driving everyone who's a part of everything, right? Especially because with small businesses, if you have the wrong person, or if you're kind of bringing the wrong people in to get things going, having an early hire that doesn't fit the same kind of value set that you have can potentially kill your company, as opposed to like, when you're bigger and more robust later on, you might be able to recover from it a little bit more because you got a little bit more elasticity either in the bank account or in social credit or whatever.
Yeah. And so one interesting thing is they probably maybe in the future hire one or two more people,
Mhm,
and having a set of values that they can explicitly communicate to
mhm.
the other person is important for fit, right?
Right.
Um,
Oh, fit. Yeah. Let's can we just define just really quickly because that's another one of those words that seems really innocuous, but it's really important. Can we define fit for just a moment for everyone so they know what we're talking about?
yeah. So first of all, go everybody after we say this, so you don't get things wrong. Google fit and inclusion and in fit and diversity issues. We're sort of not tackling that question, not because we really think it's really important, but we don't want to degrade the question by giving it just an answer in 2 minutes. But the idea is fit is that there are certain aspects of working that are more conducive to certain people, right? So, for instance, a very simple, like, great example might be is that imagine you're a person who really enjoys working from home with completely personal, flexible hours, or you're a person that enjoys being a firefighter and being woken up at 2 a.m. at night to go save somebody's life, and maybe one of your friends will die on the job one day,
Hmm.
right? Those are two very different spaces. There's things that they have in common, but the idea is that every workplace has a culture. Um, those Some workplace cultures are really diffuse, such that one floor of each culture is different, but there are cultures or pockets of culture, and those are important to understand. And there's things that are culture, and there's also things of reality. But you, as owning the business, have a really ability to decide what the reality slash culture is, and the values that you put into the business will largely affect that. Of course, shock values in the economy and things that are exogenous to your company will also influence it.
Right. And to be clear, value like why do values matter here? I'm bringing it back a little bit to what we were talking about before, right? Um, I like to think of values as things that help you figure out how to make the how to make the optimum choice in any situation, right? A lot of times people think, well, the entire point of business is just to optimize financial gain, right? Get every
Mhm.
job, get the highest margins you can on whatever, all that stuff. But Troy, I
I
don't.
listen to the Ice House podcast. I
What's
know that
that?
that's the point. I listen to the New York Stock Exchange
Oh
Ice
yeah,
House.
yeah, right,
I
right,
know,
yeah.
I know what matters.
Here, here,
Capitalism.
capitalism, right? Here's how we both make sure that we never get featured on any, or at least I don't get featured on any Wall Street Journal podcast ever. There's four kinds of capital. I know I've talked about it before, right? Not everyone optimizes for financial capital. Some people want to optimize for the amount of time that they have to spend or that they can spend not working, which means that you have an entirely different set of values if that's what you're trying to do than if you're just trying to make the most money, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
this, like, I'm going to maybe I'm going to take a little bit of a firmer stance here. I'm going to say no, values do absolutely matter, and condensed statements can matter because they help keep you focused on what matters to you, right?
Yeah.
And
Especially, yeah. Yeah. So if a company has values, what matters to you, you can go into that company and be happy. And we really mean values, not just again by moral values, but there's a really different type of person, which is always get the gig, and I want to make sure I never work on Sunday,
mhm,
or I want to make sure that I have flexibility. And those are really different existences. And those are how you live your life. And if you own your own company and you don't understand the values of your company, then the values of your company likely aren't going to support your own life. I mean, it also gets to sort of this introspective thing is when we do values trainings with companies all the time, what lots of people realize is, oh, I make fun of my company for not focusing enough on its values, but I never have thought about what are my 3 values? Like, what's
Yep.
important to me, right?
Right. Well, and this is something that, dear listener, again, great question. I would point out that, or maybe I would ask, perhaps a little bit snarkily and maybe a little bit rhetorically, but think about those companies that you've worked at that don't stick to their mission statement or their vision statement or don't stick to their values. Does it ever seem like those places are totally fine, like transgressing the boundaries of people who are working at the company, like
Yeah.
constantly asking you to stay
Yeah.
late, constantly asking you to do things
Yeah.
that they shouldn't be doing? You
Yeah,
know,
well, so what I think is interesting about those companies is they actually have values. It's just not the ones on the
not
wall,
the ones on the
right?
wall,
I think
right?
right,
Yeah.
I think that there are a lot of companies who their value is we are going to make money at all cost, and we are going to work our workers to their extreme, and our belief is we are going to work a worker until they can't work no more because
Mhm.
we can always replace them,
Mhm.
right? That is a value. Like, I know we think of like value as always like this positive thing. No, value is just what do we value,
Yep.
and this is the way that they value work.
Mhm.
And lots of times that is not what's on the wall, but that's what they actually do. So if you hate a company, if you say a company shouldn't have values, you're like, oh, but all the companies I went to didn't, the words on the wall, they didn't have values. No, they did. They were shit values. um,
Right. Yeah.
from a human perspective, from
Mhm.
a get on the capitalism podcast, fine. um,
Well, I mean, I'm going to push back on that actually, because I'm going to
oh,
argue that, yeah, I know, right? It's one of those rare moments where it's like, no, but hold on. Like, if you have shit values and you're treating your people like shit, I don't think that's even good from like a purely like capitalistic perspective either, right? Because that's going to increase your turnover. It's going to increase churn. It's going to increase a lot of
yeah,
things.
I agree that that is true. So Ian is pointing out that it is not always the best way to milk your workers dry, but like in lots of times, like literally, like being bad to your people is profitable lots of times. And I think Ian's just making sure we I don't just say that it's always profitable to be
It's,
bad to your boys.
all right,
Uh,
blood diamonds over there. All right, like,
yeah.
threshers eating people's body parts. Like, all right, hold on. Mayday's not for a while though. We can stave that off for a minute.
And yeah, so wow, that we're on some asides here, but so let's rein this back in.
Yeah.
And I think what we wanted to rein it back in is saying that most all companies will end up having values,
Yes.
whether those are the values on the wall or not is based upon whether the company is intentional
Hmm.
about making those values matter, or as you might say, putting those values into action.
Into action.
um, and as a new business, or an individual, I would suggest that it's very important for you to understand your own values so that you get to live the type of life that you enjoy or value. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise, you can just go back and work at any of those companies that put something up on the wall and then ignore it, right? Like, that's
Yeah.
part of
Yeah.
the point
And,
of being an
maybe,
entrepreneur. Yeah.
yeah, and maybe what your life is you're just like, I will go to a company where I don't really care that much about it, and as long as they're not too bad to me, and as long as I can always leave at any moment if I really feel like it, I'll just make a bunch of money, and then I'll derive my self-worth outside of it. Like, all you just so you know, people who work at Google, your self-worth can be derived from someplace outside of your job.
just
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 want to
letting
let you know.
you just letting everyone at Google and everyone out there, all of you people, well-meaning, even intelligent, beautiful, wonderful, smart people, guess what? Your work doesn't have to define you. And that's probably going to be
Yeah.
an episode in the future, but for now, do you feel like we're unstuck on this one?
I feel like this is an episode that's much more of a full philosophical episode,
Hmm,
where the point of it isn't like some massive insight, but just your question was, should you have values or not? The answer is yes.
absolutely.
Whoa, hot take over here at Unstuck. You should have values.
Yeah,
No, but
there we go.
hopefully
Bravest
you know
thing,
how to
2021.
operationalize them now
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
better way.
Operationalize, act, do, because damn it, it's important. All right, good job. I think we got this
Oh,
one.